Peace, family. Bitcoin to $1 million per Bitcoin. How do we get there? I was watching this interview with Arthur Hayes, who I have a lot of respect for. He was the CEO of BitMEX, nickname the 100X Man. Very articulate in the space of Bitcoin as well as global capital markets. And he's one of the Bitcoin bros that I started following early on when I got into Bitcoin. He has a really good grasp on the entire economic system from a global perspective. And like I said, with emphasis on Bitcoin. So I want to share this clip with you. It makes you really wonder because, a lot of the things that I've been saying leading up to, Bitcoin halving, the bull run, et cetera, how the TradFi system is pretty much making it their agenda to get rid of all of these regional banks. Um, there's just there's just so much insolvency going on that's being swept under the rug, that's being hidden from the public, and you have these handful of too big to fail banks, about 7 or 8 different too big to fail banks that, in my opinion, are going to be the last one standing, so that they can then the feds can then come in and so-called save the day with this central bank digital currency. And if you follow the dots, you won't fall for it. If you don't know, and you keep your head buried in the sand, and you think that your elected officials and all of these so-called people in charge have your best interest at heart, God bless you, right? So anyways, I just want to share this clip here with Arthur so you can dig in and do some do some research around what he's talking about. And I just love his candor. I love his no nonsense approach to this. He breaks things down really easily. He's non-politically correct, which is right up my alley, and I just resonate with this bro. So this brethren here, let's get him going. Hold on, let me. All right, I may speed up the playback here just a little bit.
And there's a particular company called Castle in the U.S. and they do scans of office key cards. And there's an index, and it shows basically about in the major metropolitan markets in the United States, 50% of people are back into the office. So that means that office buildings are utilized 50% less. And so in a theoretical perspective, I mean, like an office building is only valuable because people go into it. And so you think, oh, well, certainly these things should be worth a lot less money than what they were marked at in 2019. And that's the issue. All these banks loaded into this group of like super safe U.S. commercial real estate because people go to the office, they spend a lot of money, they have good tenants, blah, 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 in the prime markets. And then half the people decide they don't need to come in the office anymore, and these things are worth less. Now, is it a 20% decline, 30%, 40%? I don't really know. There's some selected transactions that are, down. A lot. And the problem is these banks have these loans and they don't want to recognize these losses, because if you recognize a 50% hit on an asset class, that's a few $1 trillion collectively across many U.S. large and small banks. Essentially, the U.S. banking system's insolvent. But again, we don't have a lot of transactions because there's not an incentive to trade. People buying office buildings are like, well, hello, like half your people don't come into work anymore. I'm not paying that price. The seller's like, holy shit, if I mark this down at what it's worth, a lot of other things happen in my business that I don't want to have happen, which is basically I'm a bankrupt company and then I need to either like talk to the regulators or do some sort of disclosures. So nobody's trading these commercial real estate. So as we start seeing, a bank like New York Community Bank shock the market by saying, guess what? We think we have to provision 10 times more money for the commercial real estate on our books. And it was only 2 loans. It was a $50 million provision in like I think Q3 and went up to $500 million in Q4 on 2 loans that they had on their books. And then all of a sudden, people, hold on a second, who else has this commercial real estate problem? And the answer is everybody does. Now, in the U.S., there's 8 banks that are deemed basically nationalized, like a JP Morgan, Citibank, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America. These banks are not allowed to fail. They're deemed too big to fail. They have deposit insurance, meaning if you put infinite amount of money in the bank, the U.S. government guarantees the deposits. And so these banks are fine. They can have as much commercial real estate as they want, because at the end of the day, even if it's worth 0, if you walk to the JP Morgan branch and say, I want all my money and it's $1 million, the government will come in and give JP Morgan $1 million to give back to you, and so you're cool. So that's not the problem. The problem is every other bank that's not top 8, thousands of other banks that have trillions of US dollars worth of commercial real estate, and they're all like, oh shit, if the market ever figures out that these assets aren't worth what we say they're worth, then if I don't have an insured deposit, then I'm going to move my money out of the bank. And so that's the fear, is that if people start to realize, like, well, how much commercial real estate does my shitty little bank have? Maybe I should take my money out and give it to JP Morgan. And so what you're going to have is a sucking of assets from the small banks in the U.S. to the large banks in the U.S. And at a certain point, that becomes a problem because the U.S. government hasn't said that they've guaranteed all these deposits. And so you could have this multi-trillion-dollar banking crisis. Now, that's all well and good. We're not there yet. The question is, okay, is New York Community Bank, it's down, 60-something% in the last week and a half. Are they the first or the last? I think they're going to be allowed to fail. I think that once they're allowed to fail, and maybe that happens in a week or 3 weeks or whatever it is, then the crisis spreads to larger banks. And at a certain point, it gets politically unpalatable for the Fed to allow a very substantial, non-too-big-to-fail bank to fail. And at that point, they start printing money again. And so I think that coincides sometime in the March timeframe. For whatever reason, financial crises, we like to have them in January to March and October to November. This fits for the timing. We're 1 year after the first scare, which is the U.S. Treasury market, and the U.S. government came in and did, they guaranteed every U.S. Treasury and mortgage-backed security held in any U.S. or branch of U.S. branch bank, and that's $4 trillion-ish kind of potential money printing exercise. So we know the response. So if we believe that commercial real estate is going to be recognized as a problem, investors are going to flee these stocks for safety, because why would you want to be in a bank that could be bailed out or not could be bailed out? Just might as well just get the fuck out of it and save yourself the hassle. Then we could have a banking crisis, which then will prompt the Fed to print more money, and then everybody goes and buys Lambos because crypto goes nuts. Right?
Given the approaching crisis, despite the Fed's insistence that it would not come to the rescue, Arthur cautions that it is almost certain that the Fed will launch another funding program to bail out banks, particularly if a bigger bank is threatened. In fact, there are numerous examples of the Fed doing just that once the too-big-to-fail banks are even slightly threatened in recent posts on Arthur's first post. Who cares about Fed rate cuts? Sums up the situation and how it will affect the cryptocurrency market brilliantly. When you combine Treasury and Fed activities, the net effect is an injection of $21 billion per month, which is one reason why tech, artificial intelligence, and cryptocurrency are pumping and will continue to pump the physical economy. The online economy is the main focus. Arthur shares in a different post that he's looking at his portfolio and listening to James Brown. Stand up, go on up, he says in a positive tone. Bitcoin to 1 million. Returning to the interview, Arthur discusses spot Bitcoin ETFs and the potential demise of Bitcoin if traditional financial institutions like Fidelity and BlackRock gain access to the market.
And I think it's a great thing that we've created this new financial system, and for 15 years, it was ignored. The Winklevi twins filed their first ETF application in 2013. Yeah. I don't even know if they got one in the end. 10 years later, Larry Fink files his in June of 2023. 6 months later, he gets an ETF, right? And so that tells you all you need to know about what this ETF is and who is behind it. Is it a crypto native thing to help expand the financial freedom of the world? Absolutely not. Is it a way to sequester fiat dollars that want to earn a return in fiat using what they think is new technology? Absolutely. It's a trading product. It makes fees for BlackRock and Fidelity and all the other major asset managers who've scooped up, you probably know the numbers better than me, however many billions in AUM over the last 4 weeks or so. Yeah. So it's been the most successful ETF launch in capital markets history. That should also tell you what is the problem that it's supposedly trying to solve, which is a global race to how much money can we print. And it's not an American issue, it's not a China issue. It's everybody's doing the same thing at the same time, and this is just one way for the authorities to try to control where that fiat goes. Because if you actually buy real Bitcoin, then it's out of their purview. But if you buy a BlackRock or a China AMC ETF, perfectly within their view to see what's going on, who owns what, and make sure that when the time comes, that money is subject to taxation by inflation as well.
When asked which other cryptocurrencies he believes will see a bull market in 2024, Arthur points to Solana. He says this not so much because of Solana's strength in the network as because of market sentiments. People love and hate Solana, and they love trading it. As a result, Arthur thinks he can profit greatly by playing on people's emotions with crypto assets like Solana. What are your thoughts on the interview? Arthur is also optimistic about meme coins like Dog Wyatt, which he believes will be the best of money of this bull cycle. Arthur is confident that in order to save the banks, the FAE may print more money, which would mean more currency depreciation and incentives for investors to purchase Bitcoin. Please share your thoughts and observations in the space provided below.
So there you have it, the man, Arthur Hayes. And do not get it twisted. Arthur is a Bitcoin maximalist, but he's also a trader from the TradFi side of the world. So, you can look him up on Twitter and find his relevant posts in regards to Bitcoin and so forth. But he also does some really good articles on Medium in relation to Bitcoin and macroeconomics, etc. So anyways, at the end of the day, family, the agenda is this: there will be more money printing, right? And what happens when more money gets put into circulation, into the economy? Well, it debases and devalues the net worth, the money that you have. How do you flee from that particular agenda? Bitcoin. Plain and simple. Bitcoin. All right, I'll see you in my next video.